Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight review for the Nathan Gorman and Richard Lartey fight in the UK, which Nathan Gorman has won by quite a wide margin on the cards, although it was a fight in which he had to work for the win, and he did encounter some resistance from Richard Lartey, but maybe it wasn't quite the barn burner that some people expected. Ultimately, this one was a workman-like effort by Nathan Gorman, and in the first round, he actually looked a little bit sort of out of sorts. The timing wasn't there, but in the second round he started to get the left hook counter going, a punch that he had been looking for in that fight in 2019 against Daniel Dubois, but continually was falling short. However, in this one he landed maybe 5-6 good left hand counters in that second round, and he started to build up a little bit of a rhythm. But this was a fight that didn't necessarily have lots of action, and it didn't really flow that well. There was a lot of holding, and the referee had warned both for holding in the fight. But overall, it sort of took on a bit of a pattern from about round 3 or 4 onwards. Richard Lartey would generally start the rounds relatively strongly the first minute and a half, pressing forward, looking for a big right hand. But he was exposed as being pretty limited and pretty crude in this fight. From range or mid-range, he was able to sort of get some shots away, but the accuracy, it wasn't there. Maybe in the fight in total, he might have landed, half a dozen, 8 right hands, maybe 1 or 2 of them connected cleanly, but it was a shot he was looking for and missing quite regularly. But also, his inside game was proven to be basically non-existent, and that helped Nathan Gorman immensely because whenever the action came up close, he was able to sort of take over, land some shots to the body, and he was working to the head as well. But Richard Lartey, if he missed a big right hand or even sometimes a left hook, which he occasionally looked for, he'd just fall in and he wasn't able to follow up with basically anything. So this was a fight where Nathan Gorman, because it was from mid-range to outside, was able to manage to a large degree off the back of his jab, which relatively speaking was a pretty good punch for him in this fight. In some rounds he was winning those rounds just basically off the jab, the odd counter as well. But it was a performance, it was workman-like without being spectacular. That's how I would describe it. And in front of him was a guy that was durable, who kept coming, but was extremely limited. So Nathan Gorman, he was making mistakes. He was maybe doing a few things he wouldn't get away with in other fights, but because Lartey was of a certain level, he was able to get away with it. Overall, though, he did the rounds relatively okay. I definitely got the sense that Nathan Gorman was slowing down in the second half of the fight. It looked like he was conserving energy. There was about round 5 or 6 where this weight that he's carrying, he was 272 pounds for this fight. I thought this looks like it's starting to catch up with him. He's starting to blow heavy. But because Richard Lartey was also similarly slowing down, it never really sort of caught up with Gorman, and there were a few rounds, and I think round 8 in particular, where he really wasn't doing too much. And it was close that round, and maybe you could have given it to Lartey, and I think one of the judges probably did, because the scorecards 99-92 and also 100-90. So one of those rounds on that first judge's scorecard had given it even. And actually that first round where Gorman looked a little bit off kilter and Lartey was having some success, very even. I gave that one even, and I also gave the 8th round to Richard Lartey. But apart from those 2 rounds, Richard Lartey wasn't having a great degree of success. And when he did land at the odd right hand, wasn't really followed up with too much. He wasn't able to really hurt Nathan Gorman to any real extent. But Gorman himself wasn't able to really sort of take advantage of a tiring Lartey, wasn't able to hurt him, and we've got some questions about his power again. So there's a couple of things that I'll get to. But there was one moment where he managed to sort of, a couple of power jabs, I think it was at the end of round 4 or round 5, then a couple of shots to the body, right pretty much on the bell, and he backed Richard Lartey up. But apart from that, and catching him with a number of counters, no one was seriously hurt or anything like that in this fight. It never looked like anyone was going to go down, and it sort of wasn't the fight we were maybe expecting. I think a lot of people were thinking after that performance against Daniel Dubois that Richard Lartey was going to come in there and try to really go after Nathan Gorman. And there was a little bit of a sense of that, but after the second round, I definitely felt that he was fighting in a more measured way. Perhaps he thought, and maybe this was a tactical decision, just try to box at a sort of lighter pace as opposed to that Dubois fight, and see if what could happen in the second half, especially if they were expecting Gorman to tire. And I think there was some of that, but Lartey himself was also slowing down, so he was never able to take advantage, I believe, of that weight situation from Gorman. So I guess the couple of things for Gorman that were good. The jab, it looked pretty good in this fight. He was winning rounds off the back of the jab, and good counters as well. Left hook counters, they were good. He was better on the inside, that was clear, but because Richard Lartey basically had no inside game, that wasn't actually that hard. But the speed, because he was heavier, I actually thought Nathan Gorman looked slower in there, and I guess if he's carrying an extra 20 pounds or so from what he has previously, that's just naturally going to happen. He's going to slow down. They actually said, and this was in the commentary, that some of the rationale for the heavier weight, which, I'm just going to say this now, it seemed like a massive excuse, but apparently he wanted more ballast to help him be more destructive, which I didn't see any evidence of in this fight. I thought Nathan Gorman looked the same Nathan Gorman. I still think he lacks elite level power. He didn't really hurt Richard Lartey, and this is a guy he probably should have been getting out of here. But remember, he's faced guys like Razvan Kajanu and also Kevin Johnson before, and he's taken them the distance as well and hasn't really looked like hurting them. So there is a theme developing in Gorman's career in respect of his power. When he is landing clean shots, it's not really moving his opponent. So, that is a question going higher, if he can go higher, because based on this performance, I was, it was workman-like, but it was nothing special, and it doesn't make me think that he can advance at any stage to world level. His stamina, I thought he was slowing down and conserving his energy in that second half of the fight, and that could have also been partly down to coming in at 272 pounds, which was, 16 pounds heavier than his past fight, but also a career heaviest. And he did say after the fight in the post-fight interview that heading into this one, even though he was 272, he'd lost about 35 kilograms, which is over 70 pounds. So sounds like he's really been sort of trying to strip some fat back in recent months, but clearly some more work to do. The whole thing about, having more ballast will help him be more destructive, I'm not buying that at all. He came in out of shape for this one, and I don't think it helped the performance, because we have seen in some other fights where, say against Razvan Kajanu and Kevin Johnson, where he's looked relatively slick in the early rounds and the hand speed is evident, the boxing skills, and then he sort of tapered off because I think he's, never been in the best of shape in terms of having great stamina. But this fight, he sort of looked okay, but based against a guy like Richard Lartey, who he should be beating, and convincingly. And even though the scorecards have him, it looks like a convincing win on the cards, it was one of those efforts where it was just okay. It was a workman-like effort. I didn't look at that and go, wow, what a spectacular performance. He really dominated that fight. He did enough to win rounds, but he didn't necessarily wow us either. And I think it is one of those things that if he's doing this against this sort of opposition, and he has before, Kevin Johnson, Razvan Kajanu, you have to ask the question, well, where is he going? What's his level going to be? Because at the moment, has he proven that he's above British level? This was a Commonwealth eliminator. Is he of Commonwealth level yet? Maybe. There's not too much of a gap between British level and Commonwealth level. But it remains to be seen if he is above British level at this point. But some of the stuff for Lartey, Nathan Gorman probably should have done better against Lartey, because given we saw a full 10 rounds of Richard Lartey, he's the right hand and not much else. He's got a decent chin, he'll come forward, he's game, but really he's pretty crude and rudimentary. And it was exposed that he has no inside game. So, this is the perfect opponent for guys maybe at a certain level like Nathan Gorman, who need the rounds. It's a durable opponent, but I think Gorman probably should have done better with him. And because we didn't see that sort of same exciting style and fight like we did against Daniel Dubois, I think a few people will be cooling on Richard Lartey, who they expected a bit more from this fight. I certainly saw that on social media. And Richard Lartey was saying he was going to really look to take out Nathan Gorman. But then again, Nathan Gorman was saying the same. Ahead of this fight, he was saying he wanted to go in there, and if he could, he'd take him out. So, I don't know. It was what it was, this fight. I guess you would say maybe it was one for the purist. It wasn't a viewing spectacle, but a win is a win for Nathan Gorman. And someone who wants to face Nathan Gorman is Lucas Brown.
There's information on my phone through messages and all that sort of stuff, about Nathan Gorman wanting to fight me. Commonwealth title apparently, so that'll be, I'm all for that, by the way. Now, I'm sorry, but he's got close to zero muscle mass on him, and it's just all fat and blubber, like what the... So, he's parted from Hatton, he's had a good time off, he's gotten himself fatter. Gorman, let's go.